Kuga has evolved in this improved second generation guise into a more credible contender that'll be equally attractive both to Qashqai class crossover customers and RAV4 style soft-roading SUV buyers. There's sharper styling, a much nicer cabin and extra technology that segment buyers will like. In short, if you're shopping in this sector, this is still a car you very much need to consider. Ford's Kuga was one of the first affordable family crossover SUVs to prioritise a decent driving experience. With other rivals now frequently copying that approach, the Blue Oval brand needs to do more to set its contender apart. Hence the changes made to a second generation model that's now much improved. These days, this is one of 3 globally marketed SUV contenders that the company offers, but it's the only one that was really designed from the outset for European buyers. The smaller Indian-built EcoSport was originally envisioned by Ford of Brazil, while the larger Edge model has its roots in Ford's lucrative but very different North American market. Not surprisingly then, the Kuga has long been the brand's most important player in this evolving segment, one expected to account for 27% of all vehicles sold in Europe by 2020. It's been on sale since 2008 in its original guise, that model selling until 2013 when it was replaced by this larger, plusher second-generation design, which was further enhanced in 2016 to create the car we're looking at here. The updates made are mainly of the kind you'd expect would be needed for this growing fashion-conscious market. Smarter looks, extra media connectivity and more sophisticated safety provision. Engineering changes are limited to a sportier suspension setup provided with the new mid-range ST line trim level and the addition of a fresh 1.5-litre entry-level diesel engine. There's also a fresh flagship Vignale specification available at the top of the range, creating luxurious variants that Ford rather optimistically hopes will appeal to buyers who might be considering a car of this kind from one of the German premium brands. So, will it all be enough to keep this Kuga feeling current in a marketplace crammed with fresh modern alternatives? It's time to find out. For years, a Ford Kuga was the mid-sized compact crossover that other brands turned to if they were developing a car in this class and they wanted it to be good to drive. The Mark I model was out on its own in this respect, but when in 2013 Ford had to make this second generation version slightly larger and heavier, they diluted a few of that original car's virtues in a manner not further helped by the need to incorporate electric power steering. Completely solving this issue and returning this Ford to an unchallenged position when it comes to driving dynamics in a crossover of this kind is a job that the eventual replacement version of this model will ultimately take on. For the time being, though, a quick fix for those who care about this issue lies in the introduction of an athletic ST line variant that features a far more focused suspension setup. Now, with this sportier derivative, shorter springs and dampers lower the ride height by 10mm. Plus, the anti-roll bars at both ends of the car have been stiffened up significantly by 25% at the front and by 38% at the rear, enough to deliver quite a reduction in body roll through the bends. Rather predictably, though, the other thing this firmer setup delivers is a rather unsettled quality of ride over poor surfaces, which is why we think the majority of Kuga owners won't want it. These people more likely to opt for a more sensibly sprung titanium spec model like the one I'm driving. Now here, smooth undulations and things like speed bumps are ironed out quite effectively, but nastier tarmac tears still unsettle this Ford more than is the case with some rivals. Whatever the spec you select, it's clear once you try out a secondary road that this car still knows how to thread a series of corners together. Even without the ST line suspension modifications, body control is better regulated than it is in every segment rival we've tried, bar Seat's Attica. And the Seat doesn't have quite as much of an electronic safety net as you'll find on this Ford. With the Kuga, a system called Curve control acts as a safeguard should you enter a bend with too much speed, as you might do, say, on a curved slip road coming off a motorway. Hit a situation like this without reducing speed sufficiently, and curve control will instantly step in and safely slow the vehicle down by around 10 mph/s. Other useful standard pieces of dynamic technology include a self-explanatory roll stability control setup and the usual torque vectoring system that, through tight corners, transfers torque to the wheel with the most traction. It all does wonders for your peace of mind. It makes you feel more confident in this car, something further aided by the steering. No, it's perhaps still not quite as responsive as the old hydraulic rack used in the first generation Kuga, but it has a very pleasantly progressive feel to it. There's a nice balance between feedback in the faster stuff and ease of use when you're trying to manoeuvre into awkward parking slots. A process perfected in this improved Mark II model by new optional cross-traffic alert and park-out assist features. You'll want to know about the engines on offer, all of which are relatively refined, with cabin noise levels further kept in check by double door seals and foam baffles used around the B-pillars. If you were familiar with final versions of the pre-facelift Kuga, you won't find a great deal that's different beneath the bonnet of this improved model, except for the installation of a new entry-level diesel unit at the foot of the range, a 1.5-litre TDCI power plant that sacrifices quite a bit of torque for quite a bit of extra efficiency. With 120 PS on offer, this unit propels a Kuga to 62 miles an hour in 12.7 seconds, en route to 108 miles an hour, and can also be ordered with the same 6-speed power shift auto transmission that's available further up the diesel range. Most likely buyers, though, will give this engine no more than a passing glance on their way to sign up for one of the 2-litre TDCI diesels. Here, the volume 150 PS unit offers a choice of front-wheel drive or the intelligent all-wheel drive system you'll need if you want the option of the power shift auto gearbox. There's a healthy slug more pulling power with this bigger engine, 370 Newton meters, and combining that with four-wheel drive delivers a very decent towing limit of 2,100 kilograms. It's 1,800 kilograms on the front-driven models. Ford hopes stats like this will matter to you more than largely irrelevant acceleration and top speed figures, which in the case of this Kuga lag quite a way behind many similarly configured 2-litre diesel rivals. Expect the 150 PS models to get to 62 miles an hour in around 10 seconds, en route to around 120 miles an hour. This Pokia 180 PS version, which only comes with all-wheel drive, improves that showing to 9.2 seconds and 126 miles an hour in manual form. Now, we should talk about petrol power too, though green pump-fueled engines have never been particularly popular with Kuga buyers. This part of the range is built around a 1.5T EcoBoost unit, offering either 120, 150 or 182 PS, the lesser two variants offered only with manual transmission and front-wheel drive. Now, you'll want to avoid the feebler power plant, not only because it comes only with unpopular base-spec Z-Tech trim, but also because it doesn't really have the chops to lug about a 1.6-ton family SUV, 62 miles an hour taking 12.5 seconds en route to 112 miles an hour. In 150 PS guys, the acceleration figure is improved to 9.7 seconds, which is actually fractionally quicker than the top 182 PS model can go. That pricier variant hobbled by the extra weight of two non-negotiable inclusions, all-wheel drive and an old-tech torque converter auto gearbox. We should finish by talking about the all-wheel drive system, since that is a Kuga strength. Some rivals in this segment, Honda's HR-V and Peugeot's 3008, for example, don't offer four-wheel drive at all. Others, like Nissan's Qashqai and Seat's Attica, only include it on hopelessly expensive top-of-the-range variants that hardly anyone will buy. With this Ford, in contrast, the in-house developed intelligent all-wheel drive system accounts for a healthy proportion of Kuga sales and does actually give this car a reasonable degree of light off-road prowess. As usual with systems of this sort, it's one of those that continually monitors your driving environment, optimizing traction to direct power between the wheels as required. There's even a selectable intelligent all-wheel drive screen in the instrument binnacle, showing you at any given time on a bar graph just how much torque is being sent to each wheel. As you'd expect in a light SUV, the whole power distribution process is completely seamless. So if you find yourself somewhere slippery and need a bit of extra traction, it's all automatically done for you and there are no fiddly knobs, buttons or levers to manipulate. Just don't try anything too arduous. This model's ultimate off-road stats being relatively modest. There's 208mm of ground clearance, an approach angle of 22.2 degrees, a departure angle of 24.4 degrees, and a ramp breakover angle of 20.9 degrees. Better, in other words, to leave the Serengeti to Ranulph Fiennes. You can see why facelift styling updates are necessary. Take a look at the original version of this second generation Kuga. It's a bit bland, isn't it, compared to this revised model? And being bland is an inexcusable fault in today's highly fashion-conscious crossover segment. What hasn't changed is the way that this Ford remains a global car in every sense. The chassis built in Cologne, the powertrain in Dagenham, and the upper body and interior in Detroit, with final assembly for this Kuga in Valencia, Spain. Up front, the bolder nose section follows the styling direction set by the brand's larger Edge model, dominated as it is by this large trapezoidal grille, the final finish of which varies depending on the trim level you've decided upon. High-set headlamps with smart LED daytime running light strips flank this opening, and the main lights can be upgraded, as they have been here, to include a bi-xenon adaptive front lighting system, if you're prepared to pay a little more. Further down, the front fog lights get a lot more styling emphasis this time round, with wide openings either side of a secondary air intake underlined by a skid plate style trim panel. View this car in profile and you get a better perspective on something the magazines probably won't tell you. The fact that this car is a small but significant amount larger than most of its supposedly direct rivals. Around 40mm longer than something like a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Kia Sportage, and around 150mm longer than something like a Nissan Qashqai or a Seat Ateca. Now, the styling does its best to disguise this bulk, with sharp-edged creases that are smart if a little generic. A mid-level feature line flows from this side vent-style trimming feature back through the door handles, while another lower down gives the flanks some shape, separating pronounced wheel arches that house rims that can be up to 19 inches in size. We've 18 inches here. At the back, there's a restyled tailgate and revised rear lamp clusters that can be LED illuminated on top models. The lower bumper section, though, with its corner reflectors, twin exhausts and skid plate style trimming, is exactly as before. And of course, nothing's changed beneath the skin either, which is one of the main reasons why this Kuga's 1.6-tonne curb weight now looks quite high compared to rivals with more recently designed lighter underpinnings. Here, the same steel monocoque body is bolted to Ford's so-called Global C platform, the same as that used in the third-generation Focus hatch. And at the wheel, well, it's something of a masterclass in demonstrating just how much you can change both the feel and the general ergonomics of an automotive interior without altering its basic design one jot. Come to this car from the original second-generation model and you're going to wonder where all the buttons have gone. A proper infotainment touchscreen setup can get rid of much of that kind of clutter, as it has here. Someone familiar with the pre-facelift version of this Ford will also notice that there's now more storage space in the lower centre console area. Extra stowage areas freed up by the installation of an electronic handbrake. It's worth pointing out that with the base Z-Tech trim level that only around 15% of customers choose, your Kuga won't feature either of these embellishments. All models do, though, get this redesigned 3-spoke steering wheel, which can now be optionally heated and which features paddle shift controls for automatic models. Through this tiller, you view the same deeply cowled dials as were provided before, these separated by two smaller gauges, above which sits an information display nicely positioned to be directly in your line of sight. Anything this setup can't tell you will probably be covered by the centre dash monitor I mentioned earlier, the 8-inch Sync 3 colour touchscreen that's standard, providing you avoid that entry-level spec. This package offers fast activation, large buttons, easy app integration, and perhaps most importantly, functionality that allows you to duplicate the operation of your smartphone onto the central facial screen via either Apple CarPlay or the MirrorLink Android Auto system. Now, not so good is the way that this touchscreen attracts fingerprints and reflections that you'll particularly notice if, as here, you've got the optional panorama sunroof fitted. If you're not familiar with the Sync system, it doesn't take long to adjust to it, with the central dash monitor divided into sectors that allow you to activate audio, phone and, where fitted, sat-nav functions via touchscreen buttons. Heating and ventilation is covered off by switchgear below the screen here, which is just as well, since the display itself has buttons that can be a little fiddly to use, despite the inclusion of smartphone-style pinch and swipe functionality. Instead of stabbing away at the screen icons, it's better to try and master the system's impressive voice-activated functionality that allows you to issue simple one-shot commands, simply by saying phrases like, "I need a coffee," or "I need petrol," or "I need to park." You can easily locate nearby cafes, petrol stations or car parks and find destinations like train stations, airports and hotels. And beyond media connectivity? Well, even if you get your Kuga trimmed out like this with full Salerno leather upholstery, there isn't quite the plush depth of quality you'd find in a premium brand SUV, though there are plenty of soft touch materials in places you interact with regularly. You should have few complaints though when it comes to cabin practicality. The glove box is decently sized. There are little stowage areas at the seat bases. The door bins can each hold a 1.5 litre bottle, and next to the gear stick there are twin cup holders, a narrow storage slot and an area for your car park coins. Further back, and particularly useful, is this deep storage box between the seats, incorporating a lift-out tray plus an aux-in socket and twin USB points for your phone. Time to take a seat in the back. The extra body length I mentioned earlier certainly helps here when it comes to the space you have in terms of getting in and out. Though once inside, you don't feel the benefit of that so much, the relative narrowness of this car's cabin becoming more obvious. That's one reason why you won't want to be stuck in the middle of this rear bench, a position further compromised by a seat bench clearly contoured for two. On the plus side, this central transmission tunnel's usefully low, and I think it's important to note that there's as much room for legs, knees and heads as in the best of this Kuga's rivals. This bench can't feature Volkswagen Tiguan-like sliding functionality, but the backrest does recline for greater comfort on longer journeys, and this optional panorama roof gives this part of the interior a light and airy feel. Avoid entry-level trim, and there's a centre armrest with twin cup holders, plus you get seat back mat pockets, a 12-volt socket, narrow door bins that incorporate a cup holder, and these seat back picnic trays. Finally, let's take a look at the boot. Now, Ford was one of the first brands to introduce one of those tailgates that you can operate with a sweep of your foot beneath the bumper if you approach the car like this, laden down with bags. And apparently over a third of Kuga buyers order this feature, even though it comes at extra cost on almost every model. Now, once the restyled hatch is raised, a 456 litre boot is revealed. To give you some perspective, that's significantly more than you get in a Nissan Qashqai, about the same as you get in a Kia Sportage or a Mini Countryman, but quite a lot less room than you'd find in a Seat Ateca or a Volkswagen Tiguan. Use that seat back reclining feature I mentioned to make the rear bench more upright, and you can increase the space available to 481 litres. Under the floor sits a mini spare wheel, and there's the option of a power retracting tow bar. You've also got the option, of course, of pushing forward the 60/40 split rear bench, though irritatingly you can't do that from the back here. You've got to move around to the side of the car to do it. Once you've done that, the result isn't a totally flat load area, but it is quite a large one, with a 1,653 litre capacity that's difficult to better in this class, and represents a massive 300 litres more room than you'd get in a popular rival like Kia Sportage. Since this Kuga targets both Qashqai-like crossover models and RAV4-style soft-roading SUVs, you'd expect it to be priced somewhere between these two market segments, which is pretty much how it turns out. The range is pitched in the £22,000 to £35,000 bracket, and almost all buyers choose a diesel engine. The most affordable 120 PS 1.5 litre TDCi models can only be ordered in front-driven form. But if you go for the volume 150 PS 2 litre TDCi unit, there's a choice of front-wheel drive or four-wheel drive setups. Now here, we're trying this 2 litre engine in the uprated 180 PS guise that only comes with all-wheel drive. Kuga models with petrol power are a relative rarity, but ought to make sense to lower mileage buyers, given that the base 1.5 litre EcoBoost petrol unit will save you around £2,000 over its 1.5 litre diesel equivalent. Now get the 1.5 litre EcoBoost engine in 120 or 150 PS guise, and it's only available with front-wheel drive and manual transmission. Order it with 182 PS and you have to have it with all-wheel drive and an automatic gearbox. That particular automatic is of the old-fashioned and not particularly efficient torque converter type. However, if you opt to pay the extra £1,650 that Ford asks if you're to have auto transmission on a TDCi diesel model, you'll get the brand's more sophisticated dual-clutch power shift technology. Trim-wise, there are really 4 parts to the lineup, with most Kuga customers ignoring entry-level Zetec trim and flagship Vignale specification to concentrate instead on mid-range spec levels that emphasise either sportiness or luxury. If you really like your driving, you'll be more attracted to the firmer-sprung, more aggressively styled ST-Line or ST-Line X variants. Alternatively, if you've reached the point in life where all of that feels just a little silly, you'll probably prioritise plushly appointed titanium or this titanium X trim. Enough on the Kuga range structure. How does its value proposition stack up against obvious rivals? Well, let's see. If you think in terms of mid-sized SUV crossover contenders falling roughly into 4 categories, then you'd probably say that a Kuga could well have an appeal right across the board. So, with this car, you get the fashion-conscious image of a cheaper Nissan Qashqai or Seat Ateca, the slight extra size of similarly priced SUVs like Peugeot's 3008 and Volkswagen's Tiguan, and the possible off-road ability of pricier segment contenders like Toyota's RAV4 and Honda's CR-V. Ford even hopes that top Vignale spec versions of this Kuga will appeal to people who might be considering similarly priced premium badge models in the segment, like Audi's Q3 and BMW's X1. To give you a bit more detail on that, models in that first fashion-orientated category, cars like Nissan's Qashqai, Renault's Kuga, Seat's Ateca, Honda's HR-V, Kia Sportage and Hyundai's Tucson, will typically save you around £2,000 to £3,000 over this Ford. As we've said, this Kuga sets its sights a little higher than contenders like these, not only at Peugeot's 3008 and Volkswagen's Tiguan, but also at cars like Mini's Countryman, Vauxhall's Crossland X and Mazda CX-5, all 5 of these models priced very similarly at Kuga levels. Finally, if you happen to be looking at a slightly larger and more capable Toyota RAV4 or Honda CR-V, then where like-for-like comparisons are possible, you'll probably find that this Ford will save you a good £2,000 to £3,000 over one of those. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a Kuga you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Ford has been with the standard spec. Well, let's see. Even at base Zetec level, your Kuga will come with most of what you'd probably want. Things like 17-inch alloy wheels, air conditioning, a 6-speaker DAB stereo system, Bluetooth and USB connectivity, cruise control with a speed limiter, and a Thatcham Category 1 alarm. Plus, there are extra touches you might not expect from a base model. Things like a quick clear heated windscreen, keyless start, and a sync media connectivity system with voice activation and audible text messaging. We also really like the included Ford My Key system that gives you 2 of these ignition keys and allows you to program them with preset personal preferences. So, for example, you could assign one of the keys to your teenage son or daughter, and use of it would automatically restrict things like maximum speed and stereo volume, while preventing vital safety systems from being switched off. As we said earlier, though, almost all Kuga buyers opt for one of the mid-range titanium or ST line variants, all of which get many more of the features that set this revised second-generation model apart from the way it was originally. Specifically, the cabin in mid-range derivatives looks significantly different from that of a Z-Tech model because an electronic parking brake frees up extra storage space, and because in place of the budget version's rather cheap-looking 4.2-inch Sync display, you get Ford's latest 8-inch Sync 3 touchscreen, complete with satellite navigation. Other features you can expect on your Kuga, providing you avoid entry-level trim, include auto headlamps with LED daytime running lights, rear parking sensors, power-folding mirrors, rain-sensing wipers and keyless entry. Inside, expect to find dual electronic automatic temperature control, multicolour ambient lighting, an auto-dimming rearview mirror and a rear central armrest. With all of that kit guaranteed on mainstream models, it's just a question of choosing your preferred variant. Titanium spec gives you partial leather upholstery, while the Titanium X spec we're trying here upgrades that to full Salerno leather trim and also throws in larger 18-inch wheels, a panorama roof, a power-operated tailgate and heated front seats, with a driver's chair featuring 10-way power adjustment. Titanium X buyers also get bi-xenon headlamps, featuring a cleverly intuitive adaptive front lighting system. Now, this setup monitors ambient light conditions and automatically optimises visibility by adjusting the headlamp beam angle to one of 7 settings, depending on the vehicle's speed, steering angle and distance to an object in front. If sportier-looking ST-line spec is more your thing, then you'll get firmer sports suspension, alloy foot pedals, an active park assist system that steers you into parallel or perpendicular spaces, and a much meaner look, courtesy of 18-inch dark machined alloy wheels, black roof rails and a full body styling kit. If you've more to spend on an ST spec Kuga, then the ST Line X models also throw in larger 19-inch black alloy wheels and a few of the titanium trim embellishments I just mentioned, things like the panorama roof, keyless entry, heated front seats and the power adjustable driver's chair. You even get a version of the powered tailgate you can operate with a sweep of your foot beneath the bumper. Most rivals would leave it there, but Ford is determined to see how far it can stretch its models into premium territory, which is why this Kuga, like the brand's Fiesta, Mondeo, Edge and S-Max models, can also be ordered in an exclusive top Vignale form. As a Vignale buyer, you'll have a relationship manager assigned to you to look after your ownership needs, someone who will be on hand both at your local dealership and via a dedicated hotline. When the time comes for servicing, you'll enjoy a free collection and return service, and after every garage visit, your car will get a complimentary car wash and premium valet treatment. In addition, as you'd expect, you get more kit on a Vignale variant. Things like exclusive two-tone tuxedo quilted leather upholstery, a rear-view camera, LED tail lamps, and special finishing inside and out that includes a bespoke body styling kit and a unique front grille. On to options. Now, Ford reckons that 1 in every 3 buyers of the original Mark II model Kuga paid extra for the foot-operated power tailgate, a trend that's likely to continue with this revised model. Most buyers will additionally want to peruse the various optional packs being offered. The family pack, for example, that gives you a useful 230-volt power converter socket and powered child-proof rear door locks. If you haven't stretched to one of the really plush trim levels, you might also want to add in things like the panorama glass roof or a winter pack that gives you headlamp washing and heat for the front seats and steering wheel. What else? Well, tight parking manoeuvres will be aided by the optional rear-view camera, which is available either separately or as part of a premium upgrade to the Sync 3 infotainment system. That upgrade giving you 3D navigation graphics and a better quality 9-speaker Sony stereo setup. Your dealer may also be keen to tell you about the optional convenience pack that, as well as that active park assist system and power folding mirrors, also gives you 2 clever electronic parking features freshly added to the potential spec of this revised Kuga. Cross Traffic Alert warns you of oncoming traffic when you're reversing out of a parking bay, while Park Out Assist can actually steer you out of a parallel parking slot. Aesthetics matter to the crossover crowd too. Unless you want your Kuga to be painted in flat shades of blue or red, you'll have to pay extra for the paintwork. There's a choice of premium or exclusive colours. This, for example, is exclusive ruby red. There's also a tempting range of 18 and 19-inch wheel styles. Go for a titanium spec model like this one, and as here, you can add in an appearance pack that gives you silver roof rails and rear privacy glass. Choose an ST line variant and you can add an ST line style pack that includes a large rear spoiler, privacy glass and bi-xenon headlamps that adapt to the road. The smaller rear spoiler is available for other trim levels. As for practically orientated options, well, here we've got the power-operated retractable tow bar that many will choose. A simpler detachable tow bar can also be specified. We'd want one of the protection packs that give you front and rear floor mats and a boot liner. And you can also add in door sill scuff plates, a rear bumper protector and various load retention guards to keep dogs and luggage in place. In addition, there are the usual mud flaps and wind deflectors along with crossbars and roof rails, plus carriers for things like bikes, skis, storage boxes and kayaks. Finally, we'll finish with safety and start with the expected stuff that includes ISOFIX child seat fastenings, tyre pressure monitoring, hill start assist and a full tally of 7 airbags, twin front, side and curtain bags, as well as a driver's knee bag. Plus you get all the usual electronic assistance for traction and stability control to hopefully ensure that you'll never have to use them. There's also roll stability control that keeps body roll in check, curve control which automatically slows the car down if you enter a corner too fast, and a clever trailer sway control system. There are anti-lock brakes too, of course, with brake assist to help in emergency stops, advertised to following motorists by automatically flashing hazard warning signals. Also included across the range is an emergency assistance feature as part of the Ford Sync package. Should you be involved in an accident, this system will automatically call the emergency services in the language of whatever country you happen to be in, and will give them your exact GPS location. To go further than that requires a potentially pricey trip through the options list, where you'll find a blind spot information system that on the move will alert you if you're about to dangerously pull out to overtake in front of another vehicle, and Active City Stop, which uses a radar mounted in the top of the windscreen to constantly scan the road ahead for potential collision hazards. If one is detected, the driver will be warned and the brakes primed. If he or she doesn't respond or is unable to, the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Now, you can get both these two features packaged up as part of an optional driver assistance pack that also includes a lane keeping aid, auto high beam headlights that dip themselves in the face of oncoming traffic at night, a driver alert system that'll prompt you if it thinks you're getting drowsy, and a traffic sign recognition camera that reads speed limit signs as you pass them and displays them on the dash. Crossover and SUV customers used to acknowledge the need for slightly higher running costs with this class of car, but they're becoming less and less inclined to accept them as certain manufacturers take the lead in showing just how much a model in this segment is capable of. Base diesel versions of key segment contenders like Nissan's Qashqai, Renault's Kadjar and Peugeot's 3008 are all capable of over 70 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and around 100 grams per kilometre of CO2. All of that possible because they use the kind of downsized diesel engine that Ford couldn't offer when this second generation Kuga was originally introduced. The brand has put that right with this revised model, adding in a 120 PS 1.5 litre TDCI unit to the lineup that's significantly more frugal than its 2 litre counterpart. That doesn't put it into the Qashqai class when it comes to efficiency. This Ford's bulky 1.6-tonne curb weight tells against it here. But for most owners, the quoted returns, 64.2 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 115 grams per kilometre of CO2, should prove to be adequate. That's about the same as you get from a base diesel Seat Attica, and better than you'd manage in base diesel versions of rivals like Volkswagen's Tiguan, Kia Sportage and Hyundai's Tucson. You'll hit the quoted figures by around 10% if you order your Kuga with power shift auto transmission. Most buyers of this Ford, though, will continue to opt for the 2-litre TDCI diesel unit that we're trying here, an engine that's really been worked on since this Mark II model Kuga was originally launched. Back in 2013, the least powerful 140 PS version of this unit managed 53.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 139 grams per kilometre of CO2 when mated to front-wheel drive. Today, the equivalent 150 PS 2-litre TDCI power plant returns 60.1 miles to the gallon and 122 grams per kilometre of CO2. True, that big improvement still isn't enough to match the best of this Ford's 2-litre diesel segment competitors. But again, it's enough to shade the showing of comparable Volkswagen Tiguan, Kia Sportage and Hyundai Tucson rival models. Inevitably, if you want a 2-litre diesel Kuga with all-wheel drive, auto transmission or more power, you're going to be putting quite a dent in the figures I've just quoted. If you want the 150 PS model with all-wheel drive, you're looking at 54.3 miles to the gallon and around 135 grams per kilometre of CO2, whether you choose manual or power shift auto transmission. And with manual and auto versions of the Pokia 180 PS 2-litre TDCI Kuga I'm trying here, the official figures supposed to be possible are exactly the same. Now, we should also cover the returns of petrol-powered Kuga models. Go for either 120 or 150 PS versions of the 1.5-litre EcoBoost unit, and you can expect 44.8 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 145 grams per kilometre of CO2. The 182 PS version of this engine, though, is saddled with all-wheel drive and an old-tech torque converter auto gearbox, so its readings fall sharply down to 37.7 miles to the gallon and 173 grams per kilometre. To help ordinary drivers get somewhere near to those figures on a day-to-day basis, there's a gear shift indicator, plus an instant fuel consumption readout screen on the instrument binnacle trip computer. More notably, there's also the innovative Ford Eco Mode system that continually assesses the effect that your driving behaviour has on fuel consumption. The Eco Mode setup monitors things like acceleration, gear shifting, braking, and having done so, scores you in 2 areas: speed and anticipation. Smart software then offers advice on how to improve your fuel economy according to your unique driving style. Other incorporated so-called Ford e-Kinetic technology includes the expected engine auto stop-start system, plus smart regenerative charging, reclaiming energy that would otherwise be lost under braking, and an active grille shutter, which is there to reduce drag and thereby cut fuel consumption. What else? There's a neat capless misfuel prevention system that stops you from putting diesel into petrol engines or vice versa, and a set of residual values that should prove to be much better than you might expect from a Ford. Independent experts CAP reckon that after the industry standard 3-year, 36,000-mile ownership period, a volume 2-litre TDCI 150 PS manual version of this revised Kuga will be worth around £1,200 more than a comparable version of the original second-generation model would have fetched at the same point in its life. As for other stuff you'll need to know, well, these days the 3-year, 60,000-mile Ford warranty looks pretty unremarkable. but in the first year you do get unlimited mileage UK and European roadside cover and unlimited paint cover. There's also a 12-year unlimited mileage perforation warranty. Servicing is needed every year or every 12,500 miles, whichever comes soonest, with major services every 2 years or 25,000 miles. So that you can budget ahead, Ford offers a fixed price servicing package with either 2 or 3-year options. When it comes to booking your Kuga in for a checkup, you can do this online through the My Ford portal. This is part of the Ford Blue service scheme that wraps up all of the care and maintenance of your car into one bundle that also includes a free 30-point e-check of vital parts. Here, any work required will be highlighted with red, amber or green traffic light warnings on a report you'll be given that will rank items needing attention in order of their importance. There's also the Ford Service app that you can download to your phone for free. It lets you locate your nearest dealer to make maintenance bookings. Plus, as a bonus, the app can help you find petrol stations and even has a Park Me feature that remembers where you left your car to save hunting for it in busy multi-stories. Finally, let's take a look at insurance groupings. The base 1.5-litre EcoBoost petrol engine is rated at Group 14E, with the 150 PS version of this unit rated at between Groups 19E and 21E, depending on the spec chosen. In its 182 PS state of tune, this 1.5-litre petrol engine is rated at between Groups 21E and 23E, depending on trim variant. As for the diesels, well, the base 1.5 TDCI unit is rated at between Groups 15E and 17E, depending on derivative. Go for a volume 2-litre TDCI 150 PS variant, and the ratings vary between 21E and 24E. Finally, for this 2-litre TDCI 180 PS model, you're looking at groupings of between 24E and 26E, again depending on trim choice. Having at last in recent years got serious about SUVs, Ford has also got serious about this Kuga, as it needed to. The Mark 1 model was cramped inside, and this second-generation version had fallen behind the best of its rivals in terms of ultimate diesel efficiency, media connectivity, safety spec and visual pizzazz. All that's been put right here. A number of commentators, ourselves included, had also bemoaned the fact that the original version of this Mark II model didn't feel quite as sharp to drive as its predecessor. With the launch of involving contenders like Seat Attica into this sector, that had become an issue, and Ford has resolved it by offering more firmly suspended ST-line variants that keep this car competitive against that Spanish upstart when the road gets twisty. All of which leaves us, well, where? Well, having spent some time with this Kuga, we've come away rating it as a very good all-rounder. True, if you're shopping in this segment, off-piste excellence is likely to be pretty low on your list of priorities. But if you want at least some mud plugging and towing ability, this Ford has the potential to provide more of it than most of its fashionable rivals can manage. And it can do that while making its own Sloane Street statement and beating most of them when it comes to drive dynamics. In summary then, it's clear that Ford means business when it comes to this class of car. And if you doubt that, then you need to try this one.